and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast. As you can see, we have a guest today, and I'd like to introduce into our conversation Dr. Jenny Brockis. And Jenny, let's start with how's your week been?
Hi, Danette. My week has started really, really well. I was doing something that I absolutely love to start off with. I went for a 20-kilometer hike or trek for charity. And doing that in the company of, I don't know how many other 100 women, because it was a women's walk, was just marvelous. Oh. We were walking in a pristine environment. We were being entertained by pods of humpback whales who were frolicking in the surf beside us, waving their flippers and breaching and doing all the things that whales love to do when they're playing. And it was just an extraordinary day. So that really set me up for having a great week.
What a gorgeous way to start a week.
It was lovely.
Love it. So, Jenny, I'm going to hold your book up here so our viewers can see it. This is called The Natural Advantage. But before we get to your book and why you wrote it, I'd really love for you just to share with our listeners and viewers a little bit of your journey to how you got to where you are today.
Okay, fine. So I started off having left school with no clue what I wanted to do. So I went off to become a nurse, which I did in the UK. I became a Nightingale nurse. Then discovered that that wasn't my calling. And I actually decided I wanted to try and get into medicine. Having done arts subjects at school, but luckily in those days, there were a couple of medical schools which offered an additional course before you got into medical school. And I did that and I got in. Hooray! So I got into medical school and qualified in the UK, got married, and then my husband was headhunted for a job here in Perth, West Australia. So we came out then, which allowed me the space, which I would never have had the opportunity to do in the UK, of setting up my own group medical practice here in Australia, which was absolutely fantastic because it meant I could practice medicine in the way that I wanted to, rather than being dictated to by others. And for me, it was always about ensuring that the person I was involved with was feeling fully heard, understood, and that we would work together to resolve whatever their issue was.
Nice.
However, I became a victim of my own success and unfortunately burnt out, which led to the loss of my business, which was never on the vision board. But hey, these things happen.
Yes.
But it taught me a lot. About leadership, about what happens if you've got a lack of self-awareness.
Which happens when you've got lots of stress going on, doesn't it?
Yes. And so I reinvented what I did.
Nice.
I went on a journey of exploration as to what is Jenny going to do next. So Jenny decided in the end that she was going to become a corporate health and wellbeing consultant, which I've done for the last 15 years. And it's been really great. And I think, the greatest pleasure has always been meeting people doing different things, because there's such a wealth of knowledge and experience. And my greatest learnings have always come from other people.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always done. So while I go into different organizations and workplaces to work with their leaders or their teams or whoever, it's always been a two-way street. I learn as much from them as they possibly do from me. So it's just been brilliant. And I also discovered that I like writing. I used to love writing in school. Yep. I always loved English. It was great. Yep. But of course, you get guided to go and do other things. And English sort of took a sidestep. And then it wasn't until a little while ago that I thought I'd like to write a blog, because people were writing blogs. I thought I could write a blog. And from the blog came the first book, and then another book. And I've been writing a few books, and I've got a new book out now. So I've sort of evolved. Yes, the natural advantage.
I love that journey, Jenny. It's a beautiful journey.
That's where I am today. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So let me hold the book up again, The Natural Advantage. Tell us about the book and why you wrote it.
I wrote it because during COVID, I was horribly aware that there's nothing worse than being told you can't do something. And the worst thing that anybody could tell me was, you are not allowed to go outside and do those things you like to do out there. And I realized I wasn't the only person going through that process, and how much we were just yearning to get outside. Please let us out. But at the same time, I acknowledged that I have always lived with, and I was told this, I was diagnosed a couple of years ago by a beautiful psychologist. She said, Jenny, for someone who lives with high functioning anxiety, you've made some very interesting career choices. And I thought, what? What's she telling me? What was this? I hadn't actually understood that the level of anxiety I had always lived with wasn't the same for other people. And I thought, oh, so I have always dealt with my anxiety in certain ways. And one of the ways I found most impactful, and this was true because I've also had some major depression, and people look at me sideways and say, what, you're allowed to be a doctor? But yes, I'm human. I can have anxiety. Exactly. I can have depression like everybody else who's human.
Yeah.
My go-to was always getting outside into an area of either beautiful bushland or down by the coast to walk by the sea or something like that. It was definitely interacting in some way with the natural environment outside that gave me peace, that tranquility that I yearned for. And I thought, and then I started talking to other people, and so many other people said, you know what, yeah, that's true for me as well. And I thought, yeah, so intuitively we know that we feel better when we've been outside.
Yes.
A lot of the time we don't. And if you're lucky enough to live in a beautiful rural area, as I know you are, Danette, then you have the advantage over us city dwellers.
Yep.
Surrounded by our concrete jungles. And I started looking into the research, which was very clear that a lot of the levels of high stress, psychological distress, anxiety, depression, and chronic disease that is going up and up and up and up can be attributed to some degree to the way we currently live our lives, where we are rushing around like headless chooks all day long and spending an extraordinary amount of time inside. And again, the research shows us that that simple act of opening the door, stepping outside, can make a massive difference to how we feel and how we function. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about this.
I'm so glad you did. I was just thinking before you came on, one of our chickens is clucky at the moment. And so once a day she comes out or off the eggs. And I was watching just before you come, and her and her best friend were sitting in a dust bath, doing the dust bath thing before she goes back in and sits up. And I was like, even the animals know what to do. How cute is that?
Yes, they do. Yes.
And she's sitting on guinea fowl eggs, not chook eggs. So we don't have a rooster, but we have guinea fowls that there's a couple of males. So we're going to have some little baby guinea fowls, which will be so cute.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh,
yeah, very cute. So I'm really curious, the research around reconnecting with nature, getting out in nature, is fairly convincing. Like I look at it and I go, yeah, it makes total sense. For me, living on a farm totally makes sense. And yet people still aren't getting out. They're staying inside, they're staying on devices, etc. So can you talk a little bit about the research, but also why people are still inside so much?
Well, there is a multitude of different reasons, I think. One is our constant state of perpetual busyness. We're always doing stuff which doesn't take us outside. And a lot of the time we are interacting with our technology like we are now.
Yes.
but we're doing it to excess. And I think it's vital to understand the impact that has on us as adults, but also the impact it has on our children.
Yeah.
And some of my friends who are pediatricians are particularly concerned that they are seeing normal children presenting with developmental delay.
Wow.
And the biggest reason why is because these children are not getting outside to play in the dirt or to be out in the sunshine and the fresh air. And it's true for us as well. So I think we have to make a conscious choice. When we are inside, caught up in the busyness of everything, and because we're surrounded by buildings, everything else, we don't see nature as much as we used to a couple of 100 years ago when we were much more rurally based. And because we're not seeing nature, we're not sort of drawn to interact with it to the same level. And the less we interact, the less we perceive the need to interact. Because I think most people sort of say, yeah, it'd be nice to go out for a walk, but they don't think too much of it because there's a lack of awareness that it's not just a feel-good factor, it's a health and well-being factor. And when we get that it's actually imperative that we get outside into fresh air and sunshine every single day for a minimum amount of time in order to stay healthy, we just give ourselves excuses and justify why we don't get out. And of course, our kids love to play in all their technology and their gadgets. And so rather than trying to haul them in from outside, now it's like, will you please get off that thing and put it away so you can do something else? So we've got a different conundrum going on at home. So I think we need to just change our perception of why it's important to get out and to use it, to control our stress levels, because it works beautifully. I mean, as soon as you're outside, within 3 to 4 minutes, you've induced this wonderful physiological change in your body and your mind to lower your blood pressure, to calm your heart rate, to calm down all that that's going on in your head. So you feel better, clearer minded. You can problem solve more easily. You can make decisions more effectively. And it's also been shown that spending time outside is brilliant for creativity. I mean, you think about all the philosophers and the artists and architects and people who create, they often get their inspiration from time spent outside. And I don't know about you, Danette, but I know when I'm looking for inspiration, I'll get outside and go for a big walk.
And I really love that about the creativity too, because if I think of the world, that's changing rapidly, there's lots of technology. That creativity is where we will value add because we think differently. And so, I love clearly living on a farm in the middle of nowhere, nearest neighbour 2 kilometres away. I love nature. And when I go to the cities, I feel that tension as soon as I start coming into the cities because people are often more like in the country, you pull over and have a chat to your neighbour for half an hour. People drive around you on the dirt road. They don't really care. Whereas in the city, if you're 2 seconds late off the light, they're tooting and stuff like that. So I love that, this is part of, having a really good life is to be able to be out in nature and enjoy those beautiful things. And I love how your book used the senses to start with to think about, things like our sight, our hearing, smell, taste, etc. So I'd really love for you to share a little bit more around some of those senses that you talked about and just some simple things that maybe people haven't thought about how to engage with nature with their senses.
The most important thing to do when you're going outside, or even if you're looking outside a window or through a window onto a green space, is to make sure you haven't got those things in your ears, that you're not listening to music, you haven't got your phone going off in your pocket, you are just engaged with what you can see and hear. Yeah. Those are our 2 primary senses. So I always think the best place to start, because we are visual, very visual creatures, is to look up. And it's amazing how much we don't look up. I have now made it a rule to myself, if I'm in a waiting room somewhere, I will not take my phone out of my handbag and look at it, because everybody else is doing that in a room. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to sit there without it, because then I notice what's going on around me. I was horrified to learn there's actually something called digital dementia.
Tell me more about that.
So digital dementia, and I've probably been guilty of this myself. I mean, I use my phone a lot for all sorts of different reasons. It's far more than a phone. But the doom scrolling that so many of us engage in, we start to look at the news, or we start to look at our messages, and then you look at the next one and the next one and the next one. And before you know it, 20 minutes has gone past and you're still going through your phone, and you think, oh, where did that time go? And it's been shown that this constant input of sensory information that we're looking at is cognitively exhausting, but it's also damaging to what's called our working memory. So that's part of the brain, that's notched up above our eyebrows.
Yep.
That helps us to remember what we're doing. And as we get older, we often think, oh, I've forgotten those things, or, I'm not quite as good at remembering things as I used to be. And it's easy to put that down to just getting older. But sometimes it's more than that. It's because we've been so interactive with our phones in particular, that we've actually damaged our memory. Fortunately, you can undo that by putting it to one side and getting outside. Simply disengaging from our technology and looking out the window for 40 seconds. We're not looking at hours here. We're talking about 40 seconds. when you're feeling really brain fried and thinking, oh, I've been working on this thing on my computer for too long and I just need a break. 40 seconds of looking out onto a green space or a blue space, water.
Yeah.
It's all you need to let your mind go, ooh, and you re-engage your focus, because we tend to be hyper-focused all the time. And that's what adds to our mental fatigue. When we go outside, we get that broader perspective on things. So it's what they call soft fascination. Instead of being hyper-focused on one thing, like a screen, we're looking at everything. We can see the sky, we can see the trees, we can see the vegetation, animals or other people, whatever. And that is very calming to the brain, but actually helps us to notice better.
Love that.
So you become a more powerful observer.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that brilliant?
So, Jenny, there's a really good reason why I never go outside on my phone. We have brown snakes outside. So that is the ultimate get off your phone and look at what's around you. And it works, even in winter when they're not around. But totally agree. I love looking at the leaves, the shapes, just the wind rustling. It's just beautiful. Oh, so I love that. So then, what are some other simple things people can do to reconnect to nature?
Not everybody loves nature as much as you and I probably do. Yeah. And I totally get that. But we can interact with nature in different ways. If you hate dirt, if you don't like the sensation of sand between your toes, then do something else. And it could be something as simple as having plants on your patio, on a balcony, or in your house.
Yeah.
I mean, not only are they pleasant to look at, they're providing us with plenty of oxygen as well. And they're very good at absorbing all the nasty toxins and things that float around in our atmospheres as well. So we can do something as simple as that. And just to remind ourselves of the benefits of why it's good to look at a green item. You can put a green screensaver on your computer. So you're looking at a beautiful landscape or something. And I like to change mine around because I like to have different landscapes. But you can play natural sounds. Now, I'm not into whale sounds. I do have to say that. I mean, I like watching them frolic, but I'm not really into whale music. But I'm not No, nothing against anybody who is, but that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
I find that listening to different bird song is actually very soothing.
Yes.
And we often can't see the birds because they're little, they're darting around. But there's something about just being able to hear bird song, whether it is natural bird song or whether it's a taped bird song, doesn't matter. But bird song, wind, and water are the three most soothing natural sounds we have. And I think that's a great thing just to know in itself, because I, for one, if it's pouring with rain, I love the sound of the rain on the roof, pitter patter, pitter patter. Yeah. And yes, it can keep you awake a bit, but otherwise it's actually very soothing.
Yes.
Same with listening to the crashing waves on the beach or something like that. All that type of thing, really, really simple and accessible.
Yes.
And, even when you go to the dentist these days, you can watch something on a screen up above your head, can't you? And they're usually showing David Attenborough or somebody with a nature documentary. So you can get rid of nature that way as well.
I love that. Tell me too about, the sense of smell and taste and that, how we probably haven't utilized that as much as we possibly could.
That's right, we don't. And they are interlinked. You can't have one without the other. So for me, when I talk about sort of getting out into nature and I'm starting to talk about smells and tastes and things, people look at me sideways and think, not everything smells nice outside, Jenny. And I think, I know that. Yeah. But the pleasant smells that we enjoy, whether it's a flower or certain trees that produce beautiful scents of pine, or limonene is one that's produced by citrus. That in itself is very calming to the mind. And phytoncides are the volatile compounds that these plants produce. And it's been shown to have that calming effect on us. And it also boosts our immune system. And our immune system is vital to us to stay healthy and well. So we can strengthen our immune system by being surrounded by those items that we love the scent of. And there's a reason why we cover ourselves in perfumes and use sprays and rooms and stuff. We like it. Yes. And it's also been shown to enhance our sleep. Certain people will use a vaporizer at night and put some of those essential oils in. Yep. And we assume it's lavender because my granny always used lavender to help her sleep. But no, some of these scents do have an effect on our system. Yeah. So if sleep is an issue, you can always try an essential oil or something like that. Because we're so busy, again, we don't spend the time to really notice what we're smelling or what we're tasting. Yep. And so if you walk past a coffee shop and you get that lovely waft of fresh roasted coffee beans, you go, oh, that smells delightful. And it makes you salivate because you're thinking, what, a cup of coffee is now much more attractive. I want to stop and get one. And other natural smells are very evocative as well. Yeah. If somebody's cooking a delicious meal, you go, oh, that smells so good. So all the fresh food that we have available to us, that we grow and then can consume and really taste. Yeah. In the book, I write about the best tasting tomato I've ever eaten in my entire life.
Sounded amazing.
Yes, it was. And you think, how can you get so enraptured by a tomato? Well, it was an astounding tomato. It was in Sicily. Yeah. And we were just in this beautiful place, and we just went into the shop to buy some food for a simple supper, including some tomatoes. And, when you have a really freshly picked tomato and you just hold it near your nose, you just get this, oh, that's wonderful. Now that takes me immediately to my grandfather's greenhouse because he grew tomatoes. So smell and taste are also very powerful for connecting us to previous events and other people. So by remembering to practice smelling and tasting, we're enhancing those memories and strengthening them as well, which I think is actually a really important part of our overall well-being as well. People matter to us, and feeling connected to other people is absolutely vital to health and well-being, and we can use nature to help us with that. I always tell people that, you know, if you're feeling lonely, a bit sad, a bit low, sometimes the best thing you can do is to go out into nature. And the fact that you're alone doesn't matter, because you get that sense of connection to the greater place around you, to the world.
Yeah. Yes.
And that actually creates greater social connectedness. We become more generous. We're more likely to be cooperative with others. We're more pro-social. All that sort of tension, anger, just calms down.
Yep.
Wow.
I love that. I go outside. I've got 2 hares at the moment, so they are often bounding by, and I'm just watching them and saying hi is gorgeous.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? And just the ability to see wildlife
Yes.
is so reassuring to us. It shows us that the planet is still okay. We get bombarded with all this negative media and stuff, horrible things going on around the world. I think one of the most reassuring things we can do is to go outside and see that, yep, the sun is still shining, the sky is still blue, the grass is still growing. You know, there's animals out there, and they're just going about their business, doing what they want. I think that's it helps quell some of that anxiety.
Yes. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my next question is around nature's medicine. And I'm curious, what's your favourite nature's medicine and why?
My favourite nature's medicine is that little quiet spot in our garden that I can go and sit in. It's actually a step rather than anything else. And I just love sitting there. And I've got lemon trees, and I've got other plants around me. And I just love to sit and be still. That to me is my greatest medicine. It's that permission piece, just to stop, just pause. Some people like to be mindful in nature, and I think that could be very powerful if mindfulness is your thing and you want to sort of develop a walking meditation or something like that. But for me, it's just pressing that pause button and just stopping. And again, I think because we live in such a sort of fast-paced, ever-changing world, we've forgotten the art of being still and not doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually a very important skill. And as leaders, I think it helps us just to sort of take stock of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I think as parents, it helps us just to check in with ourselves. How am I doing? What do the rest of the family think I'm like? I think that to me is a really powerful medicine.
That's gorgeous. And sort of skipping back in the book a little bit, but I loved your section around play, not just for children, but also for adults. So I'd really love if you wouldn't mind sort of sharing a little bit more around how important play is for us, and particularly play outside.
Play outside is the best form of play out there.
Totally.
And I think our children would agree, because that's how they make sense of the world. It's how they explore their world. It's how they learn how to interact with other children as well. Very important for when they do go to school and have to learn how to do things and all that sort of stuff. And somehow along the line, we as grown-ups forget that play is just as important for us. And I think what I've seen over the years is that the most successful businesses, the most enjoyable workplaces are those that embrace a sense of playfulness. It's not about playing the fool.
Yeah.
It's a lighter, playful approach which enables people to not only get on better with each other, but to understand and be more tolerant of each other's differences and to embrace those differences. I think it also stimulates what we talked about before, which is that creativity. When we're
Yes.
playful, it opens up our mind to possibility.
Yep. Yep.
And there's nothing worse than when you're feeling stuck on something. You think, oh, I've got to do, I've got till 4 o'clock, and we don't know what to do. Just sort of letting go and just brainstorming and thinking about some other things, really wacky things, doesn't matter, because that's where we find the gold. And you can do it on your own, or you can do it with other people. It really does make a difference. And people really appreciate having that space to be able to relax sufficiently that you can just sort of smile, share a joke, or an appropriate joke, of course.
Yes.
And just not take ourselves so darn seriously. Because, yes, I get that, life is busy, life is serious, work is important, but we forget that life is so much more than just that. And we're actually more effective, we're more productive. Our performance rises when we adopt a lighter touch to our work. So, and as somebody who's always been a bit of a perfectionist, highly driven, it's never enough, it's got to be more sort of thing, I've had to learn how to do that and be more playful.
Yes. Yep.
So it rubs off. And if you're more playful, other people will be more playful. Yes.
So, Jenny, I reckon there's a few perfectionists in our listeners and viewers. What were some things that you did to move from that perfectionist to being able to have that, be playful and have fun and actually get better results?
Well, to be honest, it was actually a psychologist who asked me that very question. Yeah, I went to see her because I was struggling with my anxiety, as per usual. Yeah. And she said, Jenny, you're a very successful businesswoman. You've done this, you've done that, you've created and done all this book writing and stuff. She said, what do you do for fun? And it was one of those squirmy, cringeworthy moments. I sat in her chair. Yeah, ouch. And I was thinking, oh, goodness me, I could not think of one thing that I did for fun. I thought, this is ridiculous. How did that happen? It was a real bolt between the eyes. So she gave me some homework that week. She said, Jenny, right, I want you to go home and find something that's fun to do. And next time you come back, you're going to share with me what it is. So I did. I went back and typed in on my computer, fun things to do in Perth. I thought there's going to be something, right? And I found it.
Nice.
It was swing dancing.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, because I love dancing, but I hadn't done it for years. I'd, forgotten, and I love music. And so anyway, I thought, okay, well, I'll sign up for some classes. And then I noticed that you had to have a partner. So I shared the good news with my husband that I'd signed us up for swing dance lessons. And I could tell by the look on his face that he wasn't exactly enthused, but he came with me.
Nice.
And it was so much fun. And that was the beginning, because you can't suddenly create a world of fun in your life when you've forgotten about fun. But it was the first step. And after that, it became much easier to look for other fun things to do. Oh. And the biggest thing that came out of that was the permission piece, just to stop and do nothing, even if it was for 5 minutes.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Oh, that's gorgeous. So we're nearly at the end of our chat, but I was curious, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners and our viewers? It's been such a fun conversation, by the way, Jenny. Loving it.
I think the biggest thing to remember is we do need nature for our own health and well-being, and for those people that we care the most about. And it doesn't have to be a 6-month hike into the wilderness. It is those micro moments that we can instill into our daily activities, starting with making yourself a cuppa of whatever your favorite beverage is in the morning, stepping out into the early morning light and just observing what you see. Just doing that for a couple of minutes and then build it up, create the habit, and then find something you can do that requires a bit more interaction with nature, whatever it might look like, and create the next habit. So your habit stacking, like James Clear talks about in his marvelous book, Atomic Habits, but it's creating the habit and encouraging, if you're a business leader, encouraging your employees, your staff, to get outside themselves. Do you have a space where everybody can go outside for lunch? Do you have a place where they can go for a walk at lunchtime? I mean, some people go do exercise before, after work. It doesn't matter when, but that's the sort of thing we can do. So start off with the minimum time we need outside for our mental well-being is 120 minutes a week.
It's not much, is it?
Not much.
No, wow.
17 minutes and a few seconds a day. So if we aim to get outside for 20 minutes a day, then you're setting yourself up for much better mental well-being. You're less at risk of burnout, less at risk of developing anxiety or depression or other forms of chronic illness. And of course, in addition to that, scheduling in regular time away, maybe once a quarter, go for a long weekend, and then once or twice a year, try to get off the grid, go somewhere where you can't have access to Wi-Fi or the internet. It takes 3 days to disconnect from it for our minds to stop thinking, well, I wonder if I've missed something important.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to connect when you come back.
No. I do a digital detox every Saturday. And I say to my family, there's a landline so they can ring me. So Friday night it goes off, goes on the charger in my office. And it includes the vacuum cleaner and also the washing machine.
Brilliant. I love that. That's awesome.
It's just beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Now, Jenny, I reckon there's going to be some people who want to reach out to you. So our listeners and viewers, where would be the best places for them to connect with you?
The easiest place is either through my website, which is simply drjennybrockis.com, or I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. Always happy to find out who they are, what they're up to, and start a conversation.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Jenny Brockis, thank you so much. For those watching The Natural Advantage, for those listening, get yourself a copy. It is a great practical way of improving our mental health, well-being, physical health, etc. Fabulous, fabulous read. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today, Jenny. And to all our listeners and our viewers, have a magical week.